Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are officially live from San Jose, California. First time ever in San Jose for Nvidia's GTC event. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into as we are getting into the week. I'll be here until Thursday, and obviously we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to what's going on with all of the tech updates we get from this week at GTC. And quite frankly, I think the reason we are getting a relatively strong green pre-market, I mean, pretty much across the board, there's not much that it seems like is red. S&P 500 is up 1%, is because of the fact that GTC is officially starting. Now, there's updates on oil, there's updates on crypto. We'll get into all that. Some of this stuff is actually relatively bullish and kind of fading some of the doomeristic headlines that we had last week. But S&P right there, she looks like she's going to break 669. And when she does, getting back above 6,700, I think would be very, very important just to maintain above some levels in terms of moving averages. Meta, which took a big hit last week. There's a rumor they're going to lay off 20% of their workforce. That's up 4%. Adobe's up a little bit. Robinhood, which didn't have the best February metrics, they're green, 2.83%. You got Bitcoin above 74,000. Nebius, which not only got a $2 billion investment from Nvidia last week. Of course, it's GTC, so you're going to see a lot more of these announcements, not just from Nebius, but I would imagine from a lot of different companies in the AI world. New AI infrastructure agreement with Meta, up to $27 billion is the deal. They already had a $5 billion agreement signed, I think, 2 quarters ago. This was Q3 November of 2025. CEO, we are pleased to expand our significant partnership to accelerate the build-out and growth of our core AI cloud business. Nebius is also one of the main sponsors of GTC. And that stock is now getting some love and momentum here as well. Iran is up 6%. CoreWeave is up. I mean, you're seeing a bunch of these neo clouds get some excitement right here. CoreWeave, which got hit from 115 back to 70 last week, that's at 86. That's up 7%. Iran, no big announcement for them, but that's up 6% just because I think Nebius is up. Oracle obviously had really good earnings last week, so that's helping all the neo clouds. Oracle's up 2%. I mean, you're seeing it across the board, a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum. We're going to talk about all the different headlines that so far have come out and that will come out. Also, I mean, Jensen's expected to announce some pretty important updates, not just from a product perspective, but realistically from a growth perspective for the entire industry. And that's why you're seeing Micron and SanDisk and all these names. Look at Micron. It's almost at, I think the 52 guy was 455. It's at 443. It's up 4%. I mean, again, just across the board, you are seeing whatever name that is associated with AI that really got wrecked on Friday. Broadcom, that was pushing below 320. Now that's at 326. They're getting a lot of love. And as a result of them getting a lot of love, that's why you're seeing some more excitement. What's GTC? GTC is basically NVIDIA's annual developer event. And I think they've been having a couple of them a year when it comes to NVIDIA. The last one they had was in, what was it? It was in October. It stands for GPU Technology Conference. So it's a premier global conference focused on AI, computer graphics, data science, and accelerated computing. Obviously, now that NVIDIA has become the most important player in the world when it comes to AI and GPUs, there's a lot of stuff to discuss, a lot of stuff to announce, and this will be a big one. So we're going to see what we get. We are going to see what we get with NVIDIA this week, but this was kind of expected outside of all the macro reasons for why the markets are doing okay. We'll talk about what's going on with oil and the updates on the war. It just seems like in general, this is one of those pumps that I hope doesn't get faded in the next 40 minutes when the market opens, but everyone's expecting Jensen to pump up all the software names, say a bunch of good things about the neo clouds, continue to show that Vera Rubin is getting ready to scale. And if he continues to do that, NVIDIA is the story of the market. If you're bullish the stock market, you've got to be bullish AI and NVIDIA. Rocket Lab right there pushing 70 in the pre-markets as well. And I think that's why we're seeing this pre-market momentum. NVIDIA up 1.9% right there in the pre-market. Right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And we will start off with, I think, all the updates around oil, because that's also a big reason why we're seeing some excitement right here. Also, if you're in GTC or if you're here, let me know. And, we can see each other. And I already met a couple of people last night, which was super fun. And so I think there's going to be, I think there's like 50,000 people. There's a lot of people. I mean, they have literally blocked off 4 to 5 different streets of the area. It's like if you're taking an Uber to try to get dropped off at your hotel, you have to like get dropped off at a different section just to walk because there's just so many people here. So this is the first time I've ever experienced something like this, and the energy really is electric. It does feel like people are excited to be here, which is also really fun. And so it'll be my first time kind of experiencing all this. So let's get into it. Again, good morning. Thank you all for being here. Oil, 94.67. This thing opened at 104 last night. We've had a couple of updates, particularly around the Strait of Hormuz now being open, or at least the president claiming that it will not only open, but it will be escorted with other countries' ships to be able to make sure that the strait stays open. And Iran is, to an extent, kind of agreed to the stipulation. That's also outside of Nvidia, and I think what's driving the momentum. And you're seeing that now take place with oil prices coming down, which obviously is good for the equity markets. Here's a couple of clips of Basent this morning talking about this, and then we'll keep going from there.
Well, let's pull that apart. So we are seeing more and more the fuel ships start to go through. The Iranian ships have been getting out already, and we've let that happen to supply the rest of the world. We've seen Indian ships go out now. So the Indians, who rely very heavily on Gulf oil, we believe some Chinese ships have gone out. So that should start ramping up before there are any the flotillas or protective armadas in the Gulf. So we think that there will be a natural opening that the Iranians are letting out, and for now we're fine with that. We want the world to be well supplied. The other thing that we did, we gave a 30-day waiver for Russian oil that was already on the water. Well, let's pull that apart. So we are seeing more and more the fuel ships start to go through. The Iranian ships have been getting out already, and we've let that happen to supply the rest of the world. We've seen Indian ships go out now. So the Indians, who rely very heavily on Gulf oil, we believe some Chinese ships have gone out. So that should start ramping up before there are any the flotillas or protective armada. Well, Brian, which is more? If oil spiked to $150, but Putin was getting 70% of that, or oil stays at 95 to 100, where's he getting more money? If it spikes to 150, so roughly his coffers are unchanged, and that whether a couple of billion more, a lot of money in the real world, but in terms of the Russian Federation, it costs him about $2 billion a day to run the government. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, as soon as the conflict is over, and the markets are well supplied, to go back. And again, it is a short-term window for oil on the water. We believe that will be consumed very quickly. And Brent, the other important thing to know is that oil was going to China. They were going to consume it anyway. It was just backed up.
So you've got some claims for Basent basically making the argument that oil is not only going to get through the strait, but the current implications of oil not getting through the strait actually were already expected to not be able to get through. He's using some type of logic to be able to make that argument, which, for better or for worse, has definitely calmed down the oil markets. He also then talked about China, as a lot of people are making the argument that the whole reason for this was to stranglehold China. And here's what Basent had to say as Trump will get ready to meet Xi Jinping in about 2 weeks.
We will see whether the visit takes place as scheduled, but what I do want to parse, and there's a false narrative out there, that if the meetings are delayed, it wouldn't be delayed because the president's demanded that China police the Straits of Hormuz. It would be
because there was a report out to that effect this morning.
That's completely false. So if the meeting for some reason is rescheduled, it would be rescheduled because of logistics. The president wants to remain in D.C. to coordinate the war effort, and that traveling abroad at a time like this may not be optimal.
Because that narrative is out there. So you're not saying that the meeting will be rescheduled, but you're saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, sir, if it is rescheduled, it's because of time and travel, not because of a dispute over the Strait of Hormuz.
Exactly. It would be a decision president made as commander-in-chief to stay in the White House or to stay in the United States while this war is being prosecuted.
All right. So, I mean, look, Besant making some claims right there about what's going to happen with oil prices, also making the argument that maybe there's a delay in Trump and Xi meeting, but it would not be because of oil. Obviously, people would start speculating, hey, if they don't meet, oil would potentially be the reason. Amazon right there up about 1%. But in general, I think there's three things happening right now that are getting the markets to pump. Obviously, you've got the Nvidia GTC event that's causing a lot of these companies to get more momentum, get more excitement. Nvidia is going to announce some good stuff. That's a bit of a pre-event pump. Number two, Besant's comments, whether you agree with him or not, did calm down the oil markets to an extent. And as a result, oil, which was pushing 103 last night, has just calmed down. And 94 is not amazing, but if it at least is not above 100, that would be good for equities. VIX has also taken a bit of a breather. And then fourth is sort of the general transition from March to April, right? Like we've looked at many, many charts over the past couple of weeks. February tends to suck. March, and specifically the end of March, so sort of the second half of March, tends to be pretty good. It tends to not be that bad. And maybe, yesterday the futures were green, and then in a couple hours, futures went really green. It's almost like everything decided, all right, it's time to go up for a variety of reasons, but it also could be one of those broader macro reasons of, hey, we are getting to that point of the year where things are definitely oversold. I mean, one could argue Meta getting below 600 on Friday was kind of crazy. IGV software obviously has been waiting for that bounce, and it's getting a little bit of it in the pre-market, but still Salesforce, ServiceNow, Adobe, even after really good earnings from Salesforce and Adobe, all down 30% year to date. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. Having said that, every time we think it's time, it's not time. And so hopefully things change, but we're going to see over the coming weeks if or at least the coming hours if that is able to hold up. Navius again, big headline today. That's up 11%. It was at 133, now at 125, up $12. They announced they deal with Meta up to $27 billion. So that, along with a $2 billion investment from Nvidia, that's leading it to get some momentum. CoreWeave is rallying, I think, just based on the Nebius headline. IREN is rallying as well, up 5%. And then obviously Nvidia is in a decent situation right here before GTC, which is helping the entire industry. The Microns of the world have earnings this week. I think they're going to crush earnings, and they seem, honestly, the most undervalued names in the entire AI sector based on their growth. It's just the cyclicality narrative is what keeps them down. That's up another 4%. Then you have SanDisk right there that is also up 3.62% as well. And that's what's also giving some momentum. Where are the space names pre-market? Rocket Lab. This one is up 2%. ASTS. You have more updates on the SpaceX IPO, which could influence all these names. ASTS, which was at 106 last week. Now it's at 88, but still up 2.7%. 88.75. And then obviously Oracle, again, great earnings last week, 1.29% right here in the pre-market. So maybe let's do a poll in the chat if we think this green is going to hold. I mean, I think it's harder for it to not hold given the market knows Jensen is going to say a lot of good things, and he's going to try to carry all these stocks together. I personally think Jensen is going to name drop every single company that he can and just try to tell the market, hey guys, Salesforce is not dead. Also, I think the big thing at this event is OpenClaw, right? And like, what is going to be the new open source architecture for AI agents? We know that there was an article on Friday that actually hurt the software names because Nvidia is basically saying they want to get into that world. I think physical AI, self-driving, open source agents, you're going to have a lot. And then obviously the updates on Vera Rubin, all of those things coming together in Jensen's keynote is probably what the market is going to be judging this broader macro catalyst around AI stocks and if they should go higher. And if there's good updates, not to mention if Jensen says, we see significant demand coming in that's even greater than what we said on the earnings call, then maybe we hold the green. Maybe we hold the green. But is it another day where the green gets faded, which wouldn't surprise anybody after the amount of times we've seen it get faded? It just feels like, based on what Jensen is saying here and what Jensen is implying around new updates, then maybe the market takes it up. Oracle right there, up about 1.2%. Again, oil dropping as well, which has also been nice. Where is SoFi pre-market? SoFi is 1805. That's up 1.6. Hoodie, I think, got the bounce because of Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin getting a bounce also makes me feel a bit more bullish. This thing was below 70 2 days ago. Now it's at 73, 80, 92. Hit 74 last night. Why is Bitcoin running, right? Like, if we weren't going to go super risk on, Gold and silver are basically flat. Silver is actually red. You would think that Bitcoin wouldn't catch the bid, but it is. Now, maybe it's a little bit of a head fake, but I don't know. I mean, for growth stocks to start getting a bid, if the oil spike was the top in oil, and now the market knows this is going to come down, maybe growth stocks have hit their bottom, including the biggest risk on asset, which is obviously Bitcoin. And that's why you're seeing some momentum there, as that is getting ready to hit 73. BM&R, a couple updates here. So BM&R apparently invested $80 million into Orbs, which is the WorldCoin thing. And then Orbs invested $50 million into OpenAI. So if you're laughing now that I've said that, it's because it is kind of funny that this is the game of musical chairs that they're playing. But BM&R, that's up 8.5%. They bought some more ETH. Let me pull this up. They have now 3.81% of the Ethereum supply. Again, they invested more into 8Co, and they acquired 5,000 ETH directly from the Ethereum Foundation. They have 11.5 billion in total crypto holdings. I mean, again, if ETH goes up, BM&R goes up at this point. So if the macro is kind to ETH and Bitcoin, they will go up. But yeah, that's how Orbs got an investment into OpenAI here, probably in the latest funding round, which again was 810 billion. Sources say for Iran, they were asking for a release of 3 tankers seized by India in February as part of talks of a safe passage of Indian vessels via Strait of Hormuz. Iran also seeks supplies of certain medicines and medical equipment. Okay, so the fact that you're seeing Iran potentially ask for certain concessions also means they're likely willing to come to the table and negotiate a bit more on the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. The IDF also just came out and said, we are detecting a launch of missiles from Iran. We are working to intercept those. So the war still continues, as you're getting a bunch of these headlines around the Strait of Hormuz not being closed or being closed, or having an exception to not be open or exception to not be closed. And, you know, that level of general instability is what's getting the market to be exciting. There are a lot of people that do not believe that Bibi is alive, Netanyahu. He did not talk for like 6 days. A lot of reports saying that he got hit, or that the place where he was living got hit. He put this video out yesterday, which people still don't believe this video, but there's a video of him drinking a coffee at a local coffee shop. And it is quite incredible, the amount of people that believe that this video is AI. And the reason I think this is so interesting is because in this new world we're living in with AI and all the technology gains we should get from that, there is a real issue of deepfake. And yeah, even a bunch of you in the chat are saying it looks fake. I mean, you run this through an AI video generator and all of them are coming back saying it's AI. I don't know if it's AI. I mean, who am I to say yes or no on this thing? I think as long as he keeps doing press conferences like Trump every day, I mean, yeah, he'll be seen as alive. But this one coffee video is definitely not convincing people. And it's quite interesting because obviously if he was hurt, the Israelis would not want to admit that. That would be a huge sign of, or that would be a huge boost of morale for the Iranians if they took out Bibi. But, you know, time will tell if that is true or not. And, you know, also that would probably affect the stock market in terms of seeing which side is ahead or which side is not ahead of this war. Nvidia right there, up about 1.8%. We had a bunch of clips from Trump last night as well, talking about the war. And, you know, once again, we talked about this on Friday. You've got things going back and forth in terms of what he's saying and what he's not saying. I mean, at this point, he's tweeting out literal essays. I couldn't even read this whole thing. Even Trump himself had to tweet 2 screenshots of tweets just to be able to get out his entire message. Talking about Iran and talking about the situation in Iran and what we can do to make things better right there. But he is going back and forth with us on this idea that the war is going to end soon or that the war is not going to end soon. And as a result, I think you have a lot of people that are still confused. If oil goes down, then yeah, everything's okay, and the market can assume it's going to be confused. But assume it's going to go, the war itself is going to go down, and as a result, the VIX probably is spiking. If not, then we're in a bit of a tougher situation. Here was Trump yesterday on Air Force One.
You know, we don't get oil, very little, 1%, 2%. China, as an example, gets about 90% of its oil from the Hormuz Strait. And nice to have other countries police that with us, and we'll help. We'll work with them. Militarily, as far as I'm concerned, we've essentially defeated Iran. I guess they can have a little bit of fight back, but not much. Not much. We've taken out their air forces, we've taken out their navy. We've taken out their air defense. There's no air defense whatsoever. We've taken out their leadership times 2 or 3. Might be 3. We'll find out soon. But militarily, it's been amazing. We attacked Karg Island, and we left just the one little area standing, and the standing part.
So Karg Island, again, is where they get 90% of their crude exports. Trump threatened on Friday that he would attack it. They did, but they didn't attack the oil infrastructure part of the island for obvious reasons. I think maybe that's scaring the Iranians that Trump's not bluffing, and he actually would. If he does, I don't think it's good for the global oil markets, including the United States. But that is the threat that they made on Friday, and so far they haven't officially hit the oil infrastructure on that island.
This is where they have the pipes, all the oil pipes come in, and we can do that on 5 minutes' notice. We have it all locked and loaded and ready to go if we want to do it. But we chose not to do it. I chose not to do it yet. We'll see what happens. They want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. I don't think they're ready. Just on what I'm hearing, they want to negotiate badly, as they should. But I don't think they're ready to do what they have to do. But I think they will be ready at some point. But we're doing very well with respect to that whole situation in Iran. We are talking to other countries about working with us on the policing of the strait. And I think we're getting good response. If we do, that's great. And if we don't, that's great too. But remember, like as an example, in many cases, the NATO countries, we're always there for NATO. We're helping them with Ukraine. It's got an ocean in between us. Doesn't affect us, but we've helped them. It'd be interesting to see what country wouldn't help us with a very small endeavor, which is just keeping the strait open. That, by comparison, it's small because Iran has very little firepower left.
Now, you had a bunch of NATO countries over the weekend and actually this morning talk about helping the United States with keeping the strait open, which is not an end to the war. Obviously, it's not fully ending the war yet, but it is signaling, at least to the broader market, that oil prices, if the strait is opened, or at least if 20 to 30% of the ships that used to go there daily are going to be able to get through, including ships from India, that oil prices will be tame. Whether or not the war ends is a different question. Obviously, the way the Trump administration will claim victory on that or continue to stay there is going to be up for debate. But if we can keep the strait open for us as investors, as many different questions as there's going to be around the nature of when this war ends or not, that's the biggest thing for all of us. Like, if it stays open, we're kind of going to be okay, at least in the short term. If it stays closed, it's just going to exaggerate the height of kind of what's playing out on the war and how the war continues to go through. Now, the one thing that I saw over the weekend that I thought was also very, very interesting, I did not expect to hear this, but when I saw it, it actually was quite incredible to see. And you got Nvidia right there at 183.63. You have David Sachs, who's been one of the biggest supporters of the Trump administration on everything. However, he's also a very anti-war type of guy. He went against the Trump administration over the weekend and said, I think we should find an off-ramp and end the war immediately because the economic fallout from this will just be too much. And this was him basically going against what the people who have been advising Trump around this war have been saying.
Well, I agree that we should try to find the off-ramp. I mean, I agree with what Brad and Jamal said about that. Look, we've degraded Iranian capabilities massively. Their army, navy, air force all been destroyed. This is a good time to declare victory and get out. And that is clearly what the markets would like to see. You are seeing, however, a faction of people, I'd say largely, but not exclusively in the Republican Party, who want to escalate the war and who are calling for things like ground troops or regime change, or they simply want the pounding of Iran to just keep going on and on. I saw an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal to that effect, that we shouldn't try and find an off-ramp. We should just keep going with this. And I just want to lay out, I think, some of the risks of what an escalatory approach could entail. So first of all, we're all seeing that the Straits of Hormuz are closed right now. We don't want that to persist longer than it has to. But there are actually worse outcomes than that. So
you can tell Mr. David Sachs did not want to get into this. If he was actually consulted on if we should do this or not, he would have said no. Why? Because he's a business guy. And a business guy would have looked at what's going to happen with oil, what's going to happen with the stock market, what's going to happen with volatility, what's going to happen with the broader ecosystem of how this would ultimately play out geopolitically. And he probably would have said, you know what, we don't need to free the Iranian people. And there's probably a different way to get this job done. And I mean, just even Chamath and Brad and Jason on the podcast, these are all business guys, and they are all completely going against the administration on this. And they're trying to do it in a way that's subtle, that doesn't, create too much hostility, obviously, because, literally the $1,000 accounts are called Trump accounts that Brad Gerstner pushed through. So they don't want to piss off the administration, but they're also making a very obvious point, which is that we cannot have this war continue. And if we do, the ramifications for proxy wars, global oil supply, the obviously the flow of oil going through the strait is just going to be into question. And so you're seeing the business community come out that has been very, very strong in terms of supporting Trump. And they are saying, yeah, we need to just say we claimed victory, even if there is no victory, and essentially make the argument that it is time to find an off-ramp to this war and leave the region, which again brings up the double bind. Do we leave the region and call a victory off not having a regime change, which to my understanding, we have not changed the regime yet? Or do we put boots on the ground to actually make the regime change happen to then officially say we won, which obviously would extend the war? That's sort of the rock and the hard place that Trump is stuck behind. And obviously, I think most of the stock market would want him to just claim victory and make up some excuse so we could leave the region and this could all be over. But time will tell if that's the route that he actually chooses to go on. The Q's right there, that's up 1%. Lemonade's up 2%. S&P 500's up 0.87%. And Marvell is also up 1.97%. as we are going green. Some of the other updates that we have in the macro outside of the war, which again, the market seems to not care about too much. I put in the chat, what do you guys think if we hold green or red? Let's put up the poll, or let's see what the results are. We've got 65-35. Yes, we can hold the green. 65-35. I want to say yes, I do. I just feel like it's a little too consensus to be the green's going to hold just because we have Nvidia's event. Now, granted, I think we could kind of go red until Jensen speaks, which is in about 2 hours, and then just leave it to Jensen to save the market again. Palantir right there up 0.5%. Ethereum 22.79. Salesforce up 2% as well. But realistically, he's going to have to say some stuff that gets the street a bit more excited about everything that we've already heard about AI. The good thing is Nvidia had such good earnings and actually fell $20 from that print that if it were to rally today $20, which I'm not going to say it does, but let's say it does, no one should be that surprised because it realistically should be around 220 right now if we were to take a more basic forward PE estimate instead of 20 times. Same thing with Microsoft, which fell below 300, fell below 400 last week. That's now at 397. That one still has been struggling to find momentum. I was talking to a couple people over the weekend, and this is not anything that new, but given the range the S&P 500 has been, we're either breaking out to the upside or breaking out to the downside. But it does feel like a breakout is coming one way or the other. And hopefully that breakout is to the upside and it's supported by either good fundamentals or oil going down or just like general catalysts around AI. But losing 670 last week was not fun. And if we don't recapture it this week, I also think it's just one of those things where you got to be ready for that downside action because it could happen. And I think it'll be quick. I agree with Jason on this, that if we do get a really ugly 7-8% correction, it'll be quick and you'll be able to recover. And that's not something to sell into. But I also think the market's waiting for when do we rip off the Bandit and see if that ends up actually happening. Broadcom right there. That's also 1%. I thought he was speaking at 2 p.m. Eastern. You might be right, Joanne. It might be at 2 p.m. Eastern. Their website. Yeah, you're right. 2 p.m. Oh, okay. So sorry. At 10:50, which is in an hour, there is the event is starting, but they're going to have a bunch of other people talking outside of Jensen. And so, until the middle of the day, quite frankly, markets could be stuttering a bit. So Jensen doesn't speak till 2. So realistically, the effect of his talk will you'll see it around 3 o'clock. So we do have some hours until that begins. His actual keynote at 2 p.m. Ulta, yes, this took an ugly dip last week. I guess guidance wasn't the best. This one's still down 0.34%, down now 14%. Earnings are going to be for this week. Micron is the big one. I think we have FedEx. Micron's on Wednesday. Red Cat also is on Wednesday. Where is Red Cat? Let's pull those guys up. Red Cat is up about 1% right here. Oklo, Lululemon, Red Cat, Micron, Macy's, Accenture, and Baba are all going to be this week, and FedEx. So still some important earnings, and hopefully we'll see some excitement. But most of the big ones we've already had across the board. Okay, oil again right here. We're seeing it. Let me pull up a couple of other macro stats on oil. WTI crude at 94.18. Now, even with oil going down, retail's continue. So we looked at a chart last week about how excited retail has been for oil. More and more excitement continues to happen around oil. So take a look at this right here. I thought this was pretty interesting. 1 month retail purchases in pure play oil ETFs surged to a record 211 million on Thursday. May of 2020 was 200 million. So we are higher than the last time this happened, which was May of 2020. And quite frankly, the reason for this is because retail purchases of oil ETFs are not only 10 times higher than they've been over the past 5 years, but they're signaling that retail wants to transition into playing oil either as a defensive way or potentially as an offensive way to navigate the war. I do think this trade is crowded. It's been crowded for a while. And realistically, the time to make this trade, even as a hedge, was back when oil was 50, 60 bucks, not at $94. Because again, every time like the market thought oil was going to stay above 100, it has happened 4 times in the past 5 days. It just closes below. I mean, we closed below 80 until the Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, deleted his tweet, which caused all that controversy about the Strait of Hormuz. But I could see oil easily coming back down to reality if there's any update from the Strait of Hormuz, which we've seen a lot of them this week, this morning, or if Trump just, kind of claims victory and the war is over. I mean, that one headline, that sort of, it's time to buy the dip moment, that don't be a panican moment. You see that come out by Trump, you're going to easily see the market rally and oil come down. But people are definitely preparing for it if there is a way for oil to continue going as high as it's been. Yes, Planet Labs earnings is also going to be happening this week as well. You guys think Jensen is live now? I don't think he is. If anything, they might be playing. Oh, he is. Well, no. Okay, see, I'm not going to do what I did last time, because last time I did this, it was embarrassing. So if you type in Jensen live on YouTube, you'll get a fake channel that's probably going to plug in some crypto coin. I did this last time. It was very embarrassing. This is footage from the last GTC. There's 8,000 people watching that right now. That's fake. So, yes, he'll be live at 2 p.m. Besant and Greer are live. Okay, let's go to them. We got 10 minutes until this market opens. Besant and Greer. Are they up on Fox? I think I'll pull up Fox. I think they might be up there.
He's looking forward to that meeting. It just might not be starting at the end of this month. Stu?
All right, Edmund, thank you. Now, listen to what Energy Secretary Chris Wright had to say about the Straits of Hormuz. Roll that tape.
No, it is not. That's one of the objectives at the end of this conflict, is to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. But no, it is. Since the conflict began, Iran has impeded flow through the Straits of Hormuz, and that is still the case today. We have focused initially on their ability to project distant power, impeding flows in the Straits of Hormuz, which is...
Okay, Besant and Greer are having their own press conference. Let's pull that up right here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Secretary Mark Landler with the New York Times. I'm just wondering whether you've been made aware of any Chinese retaliation investigation, and did the investigation.
Audio on this is getting hit. Okay, so we might not have audio on that right now, but they are having their own press conference. Yeah, we're not getting any audio on that. we'll see what they have to say. Again, Besant basically said the same thing this morning around China, which is that apparently now there's these updates that China might delay this meeting, and you've got the administration trying to say it wouldn't happen for the oil, like it would happen for a different reason if China were to delay the meeting with Trump, which, I mean, they're the ones who invited him, so I would imagine that the oil would be potentially playing a role, but that's not Tom Lee with him. That's Trade Representative Jameson Greer. Well, that would be funny though. If freaking Tom Lee was with Besant. Could you imagine talking about Ethereum and oil prices? But yeah, so if we don't have the China meeting with Trump, yeah, a lot of people are going to speculate that that's not a good thing, given this is the first time in his second term that they're meeting. But yeah, seeing a ton of headlines this morning. Trump said if Trump visit is delayed, or Besant said this, it will not be due to any cause or relationship with the Iranian war. Which I just don't know how many people are going to believe that's the case. Bitcoin right there, 73.4, as we are about 8 minutes away from it getting into this market open. I'm trying to see if another stream has Besant and Greer live. No, it's just that independent Reuters stream. The audio on that is just not the best. Here's also what Levitt said today around the UK.
This action in the first place.
The president just told the UK a few days ago that he doesn't need airships, and now he says he does.
The president spoke on that last night. He said that he wished the UK had stepped up sooner and quicker, but he continues to speak with our allies in Europe and is calling on them to do more, just as he did when he called on them to step up with respect to their defense spending in NATO. He's calling them to do more here, and I think you'll see that come to fruition.
Okay, and then here was Starmer this morning as well, talking about the war.
Second, while taking the necessary action to defend ourselves and our allies, we will not be drawn into the wider war.
Okay, so Germany and France went a little bit of the opposite of what Starmer is saying, but the UK Prime Minister making the argument that we were not going to get wrapped up into this. Nebius right there, up 9.7%. Again, they announced a deal with Meta up to $25 billion or $27 billion. That's why that stock getting some love right there, up 10%. This comes after the $2 billion investment with Nvidia. Bitmine, that's up 9.2% as Ethereum is doing well. Microsoft's up a little bit. S&P is up 1%. SoFi's up 1.8%. Robinhood's up 2.7%. Iren and CoreWeave both are up 6% as well, following some of that momentum from the Nvidia deal. All right, so what are we thinking? The majority of people here are saying that, yes, we think this green is going to hold. I guess the question then becomes, do you buy into the strength of this green right here, or do you think that this green is going to take a little bit of time to materialize? The problem is every time we've seen that it's been clear skies, which we've had happen twice over the past 15 days, maybe it happens at market open or maybe it happens in the middle of the day, but then we just flip red. And if it were to happen today, on the day that Jensen's supposed to really pump the markets, or at least, you know, talk up Nvidia enough, which would imply pumping up the markets, you got some of these photonics plays also going green in the pre-market. I mean, pretty much everything, quantum, space, nuclear, everything. Crypto is getting some love here as well. HIM's actually down. Weird. You would think the green momentum would get it to go up. But if it doesn't happen today, it would be another sign of it's just not easy to get the market to really get some love. I mean, today might also be a great day to sell some covered calls if you don't believe in the green holding through. Besant said detailed talks with China on new tariff authorities will be happening. Besant said greater stability in China relationship is present, and the purpose of these talks is to prevent retaliation with China. Okay. So let's hope and let's see if that actually happens. Again, if we cancel the meeting with China, that just would not be good for U.S.-China relations. And hopefully it's not due to oil, but now that is the question that a lot of people are asking right here. BlackRock's up 1.3, Apollo's up 1.3, KKR is up 1.4. So all of the private equity stocks are green. Private credit names are up as well. Ondas up 2.16. I mean, you're seeing a ton of names get a bid. Apple's up, Applied Materials is up, Cipher's up, ARC is up, Boeing is up, Intel's up 4%. I mean, you're just not seeing that much red Fun Extreme, thanks for the super chat. Fill the gap to 672 and back down we go. 672 also, hopefully it's not hard to get there. We're at 668 in the pre. We got 4 minutes. Let's see if we can bust above 670 and actually hold it. 662 is where we were on Friday. So it is nice to get closer to that 670 level, given we were $2 away from falling below the 660s, which we have not done realistically since November. We touched it last week a little bit, 659, but November was the last time we actually stayed after those levels. Blast heard over Jerusalem after missiles have been detected. So unfortunately, that headline also has been around all weekend as Israel has tried to use the Iron Dome to block a ton of missiles, but they have not been able to get all of them. And as much as the market wants to think the war is over, you still have these missile strikes going back and forth. Trump just tweeted as well, news conference today prior to the Trump Kennedy Center board meeting. He didn't say what time, but he did say there will be another news conference. Also, we got a headline from OpenAI. OpenAI in advanced talks with TPG, Bain Capital, Advent, and Brookfield on a joint venture to distribute AI products. Private equity firms could commit up to $4 billion for equity stakes in OpenAI joint venture worth $10 billion. Wow. I mean, that would not be crazy to see if that happens. Private equity joint venture for OpenAI. It sounds super bubblish, but advanced talks with Bain Capital, Advent, and Brookfield to distribute AI products. I mean, look, all these partnerships are going to be necessary for OpenAI to continue to grow in the enterprise and in the consumer space. But if you're going to have these new joint ventures that are going to be subsidiaries of OpenAI, I mean, yeah, there's probably going to need to be financing for them, and that financing is likely going to happen from these different private equity companies. Here's Carolyn Levitt. We have about 2 minutes until the market opens. This is what the Trump Kennedy Center meeting is going to be about today in terms of that news conference.
What about President Trump signing this fraud task force executive order with our vice president?
Yes, later this afternoon in the Oval Office, the president and the vice president will formally launch their executive order and their task force against fraud. This is another promise made and kept by President Trump. He announced this in his State of the Union address and announced that the vice president would be overseeing this task force. So this is really going to establish a whole of government effort to fight fraud at both the state and the federal level in every state across the country. We look at states like California and New York. We know there's been hundreds of billions of fraudulent schemes that have ripped off American taxpayers. So we're going to turn every page to find and identify this fraud, to prosecute the individuals who are engaged in it. This will be, again, a whole of government effort led by the vice president, and the president will be signing that in the Oval Office this afternoon.
So that will be what the conference is about. Again, Trump did say he's not going to sign any new bills unless the Save America Voting Act is passed. So I guess we'll see if they can get that passed and if that's going to be one of the main priority issues before they get into any other bills, including the Clarity Act, which hopefully by mid-April we have some more clarity on, which would help crypto, that most of the crypto investors are waiting on to pass as well. All right, folks, 30 seconds. Let's see what we can get. Again, majority of you say we can hold up on the green today. Hopefully we do. Jensen will be talking in about 4 hours, and that's when we'll see what he says, and the markets obviously will be reacting to that and listening intently. Again, I'm here at GTC. It will be fun to get some coverage on the ground, and hopefully we can maintain this momentum. Monday, March 16th, the start of GTC week. It is 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. Can't wake up everybody at the hotel, so I have to ring the little bell. All right, let's get into it. Robinhood up 2.4%. SoFi up 1.46%. Rocket Lab blast through 70. That's up 3% on the day. Micron, that's up 5%. Micron going for those all-time highs at 455. It's at 449 right now. SanDisk, wow, back to 700. Took it about a month to get back here, but it is back to 700. That's up 5.6% on the day. Nvidia, 183.20. Nebius is up 13% again. $27 billion deal they signed with Meta. That's why that stock is getting some love after the $2 billion investment from Nvidia. Nebius right there, 127.83. Microsoft, 396. Ulta, 537. Red Cat, 16.18. Iren's up 6%. S&P Not really busting through that 670 level. It's trying. 668.15. Trying to get there, but not there yet. You're seeing green across the board, though, even if the indices aren't really showing that much green. The Qs are up 1%. Marvell's up 2%. Lemonade's up 4%. Oracle is up 1% as well. Palantir is that green. Palantir is 152.55. That's up 1.06%. Airbnb, that's up 1%. Arc Innovation's up 2%. Boeing's up 1%. South Korea is up 6.1%. South Korea. So you got Samsung and SK Hynix that are both up about, I think, 7% on the day as that one continues to get the entire index to go green. Extreme fear and greed. Where are we at on that? We are at, wow, we're still at extreme fear at 22. I think that's an index reading. Given the index, again, is below historical levels. 668.41. That's up 1% on the day. Let's see if we can get through 669 and then 670, which would be nice to see if we can capture that. But that is why we are at extreme fear, I think, in my opinion. Robinhood, that's down or up 2%. SoFi's up 1.5. Rocket Lab's up 3. Nebius holding on to the pump, 130. Now, the all-time high on Nebius is 141. So you got a 15% move right there. 133 it hit in the pre-market. Is Iren following? Iren kind of 7%. I mean, that's still a hell of a move for Iren, 44.46. And then you got CoreWeave as well, which is at 85.73. That's up 5.7. That is up 5.7. So the NeoClouds getting their moment right here, especially as we get into this Nvidia event. Circle 122, that's up 6%. Circle is green. OSS, that's back over $10. That's up 2.68. AppLovin's at 461. Silver's at 73.28. SLV's up a little bit, not up that much. Navitas up 14%. I don't know if they announced something. This one was rallying on Friday as well. So you see these smaller AI plays starting to get some love. Micron, obviously, another big one. VIX is down. VIX is down 9%. I mean, that is a hell of an open in terms of the VIX dumping. That should be, if that continues, very bullish for the broader equity markets right here. Let's look at software. Is software red or green? Software is green, except a couple of these names. Adobe cannot catch a break. That one's down. Cloudflare is down. CrowdStrike is down. Oracle, Confluent, Snowflake, Datadog, Palantir, Intuit, Twilio. Those are all up. And then the semis are all green across the board. ASML, Broadcom, Nvidia, Dell, Micron, 450. There she goes, up 5.7. Nvidia pushing 184. There it is, 184, up 2%. Getting a nice little pump right before the GTC event. Intel's up 7%. SMCI's up 4%. Yeah, this entire event is taking all the semi names a bit higher. I feel like this is so fake. Look, it might be. I mean, we've seen big rallies like this get faded within minutes before. I just think, the catalyst of GTC should be enough to sustain some of it, if not all of it. S&P not really making a move, though, is a little weird. You're seeing all these stocks get a bid, and then the S&P, I know it's up 1%, but it's not really pushing because it was at these levels last night. So I think that one getting a higher push would be nice to see. Nike's been in a downfall for the past 12 days. That's now a little green, 54.25. DraftKings is down 3%. Roku is up 3%. Roblox also up 2%. Roblox was at 140. Now it's at 57. So this one is also taking a pretty ugly haircut. And then Google back above 300. Back above 300. Krishna says this is the intraday euphoria. I don't trust this. Well, it's not intraday, right? It's like early 4 minutes into the market open euphoria, which could turn into an intraday dump. Very possible. But yeah, I agree. It's hard to trust it given it's like within the first 5 minutes, all the volume is there and the sellers might come in pretty quickly. HIMS, by the way, their short float continues to go up. You would think people would be covering. No, there are less shares available to borrow for HIMS. Saw this on Friday and I couldn't believe it given the Novo thing was resolved. The float now, so the float was 38%. The float, short float, I'm looking at Wall Street Journal, 41.03%. 41.03. That's up 3%. Palantir 153 from 2 weeks ago. Nebius losing 130, but holding 127. Hood 74.55. So it is incredible to see the shorts continue to double down on HIMS. Is there any update on China and Taiwan? No update on China and Taiwan. The only headline this morning is that Xi's meeting with Trump, which is supposed to happen March 31st, might not happen. The White House is saying it would be delayed for reasons outside of the Iranian war. I don't think a lot of people believe that, but that is the main headline with China this morning, and we'll find out if we actually do end up getting that meeting. Marvell, that's getting a nice spike. That's up 3.8%. Green, Bitcoin 74. That's also getting some love. 74.3, up 1% on the day. Vertiv, that got into the S&P. That's why that continues to get some love. Healthcare, what are we seeing? UNH is flat. CNC is up 1%. Molina, CNC, Elevance, they all got hit last week. Molina is also flat. I don't think healthcare is the exciting sector for this year right now. Not only do they have to deal with all the policy changes, but their earnings just haven't put up. I mean, Molina just had a crappy earnings. I feel like if you're going to go dumpster diving, software would be easier to buy than healthcare. Now, obviously, healthcare is probably safer than software to an extent, just because the nature of these vibe-coded applications is scaring the market. Red Cat up 1%. But maybe IGV over the healthcare ETFs is what is the better play right here. 85.20 on IGV. The value names aren't really catching the bid. I mean, they are to an extent. Coke's up a little bit. Verizon was at 51 over the weekend. Verizon's still at 51, barely down. You're not seeing the growth names go crazy. Grab's up 3%, but you're also not seeing the value names go super red. ARC's up 3.19. Where is AMD? That is at 197. AMD trying to get back up to 200. Just so if I actually go red, oh my goodness. It's 4 cents away from going red. Yeah, guys, we've talked about it for the past couple of weeks. I really think the market is not happy with their loans, even though I think it's an unjustified level of caution. But loan growth in general across the industry is coming into question in terms of the quality of those loans. Whether or not it's justified is a different question. I don't think it is, but that's what's been affecting SoFi. Nebia is still holding that 14% move, 129, as that goes green. 32 billion market cap right there. Robinhood holding up, but you're seeing the red candles coming on Robinhood as well. BMNR, also great day, up 11% on BMNR, which is primarily Ethereum. Tesla, are we trying for 400? We are trying 399.63. This one fell below it last week. Almost was at 385. CoreWeave is selling off. Is it? CoreWeave. Yeah, you're seeing that red candle come in. Again, the question is going to be, how much juice can these guys sustain throughout all of this? Dell right there is at 153. Meta, the report was that Reuters said they're going to fire 20% of their staff, which I still don't fully believe because, dude, 20% of their staff is talking about 14,000 people. I mean, that's a lot of people. That's one of the most, I know Amazon fired 30,000, but Amazon also has a lot of workers that are in warehouses. Meta, you'd imagine this would be all white-collar jobs, which would be one of the first kind of major AI-rooted layoffs. Now, they're probably not going to say it's because of AI, but and more likely than not, it is. Circle right there up 7%. Circle continuing to get some love right here and not slowing down. Microsoft can barely catch a bid. Lost everything. It's up 30 cents now. SanDisk still below 700, just below it, and then Micron also losing a little bit. Nvidia continues to push the high of day at 184.50. Actually, no, it touched 185, so just below 185 right here. SoFi's at a 39 PE compared to 10 to 12-ish industry-wide. That is fair, but SoFi is also growing more than the industry. But once again, it comes down to that age-old debate, is SoFi's growth going to be respected as a bank, or is it just growth and should be seen as a tech company? Which I thought we were past that debate, but I guess not. S&P 668.80, still up 1%. Bloom's up 1.4%. Coherent's up 6%. This is your photonics play along with Lumentum. That's up 6%. I imagine Jensen's going to mention a bunch of those names. How about Zeta? Are we green on that one? Zeta is up 0.5%. This one's even losing its steam from 1820 to 1792. Then again, all of software is kind of not that exciting here. EU imposes sanctions on Chinese and Iranian entities for cyber attacks against EU member states. Okay, that's not too surprising. There's a lot of different subsidiaries of China and Iran that have been sanctioned over the past couple of weeks. I mean, we covered one of the updates from the United States 2 weeks ago, doing the same thing for different Iranian sanctions. I think the broader question is going to be, when does the EU and the United States come together to officially say they're putting an end to this war, which is what Trump was asking for yesterday, in terms of NATO allies coming to help him with this. SanDisk back up to 700. S&P, all right, here she's going for it, 670. Let's see, about 50 cents away. SPY high of day right here. This would be what we want to see if we're going to hold on to some of this momentum. What about Archer? Archer didn't have the best earnings, but they also got sold off a decent chunk. Archer is now up 3% today. Archer got to $6.03. Yeah, I mean, Archer, Joby, a lot of these spec names right now, you kind of need a bit more of a bullish market to not have them be seen as speculative. And I'm just not fully there yet. 669.30 on the S&P. What is surprising to me, as soon as I woke up and I saw Bitcoin get this, I mean, I don't feel like Bitcoin should be rallying without some broader growth risk-on excitement coming after it. Bitcoin 74.4, but you are seeing that. SanDisk, I think one of the reasons SanDisk is going crazy is because Micron is going to report some insane numbers. Like if you look at just DRAM prices and NAND prices across the board, obviously HBM, it is just going up and up and up. To the point, there you go, SanDisk back at 700, where you're seeing Apple potentially have to cut some of their estimates just because of prices going higher for memory inside of the iPhone. I mean, if that's the case, that's not the best for Apple, but it does mean that memory will continue to catch this insane bid that it's been on, regardless of how cyclical the market thinks it's going to be. S&P, she's trying. She is trying for 670. Rocket Lab up 3. Micron back to 450. Nvidia, a little bit of a fade at 184.20, but still green. And then Broadcom completely losing everything. One thing I'm afraid of for Broadcom today is if Nvidia announces some really good stuff, Broadcom's perception is that they're rooted in custom ASICs. If the market says, well, we think people are going to buy less ASICs, which again, I think is stupid given Broadcom's guidance, but just that perception alone could take Broadcom red. It's now up 50 cents on the day. VG, unfortunately, as oil prices have come down, VG is also down 5%. Why is Amazon going down? Good question. Why is Amazon going down? Wow, losing all of its gains, just like SoFi today. I don't know. There's no headline on Amazon. Obviously, they do have that at the money that they can use to dilute, which, by the way, same thing that Nebius has. So it's one of those things people have to watch out for, that as the prices go up, these companies, which have already explicitly said they're going to dilute, and it's a good thing for them to dilute, because if Nebius is going to do $27 billion worth of business with Meta, they're going to need more capacity. They might have to dilute. And Amazon, to invest that $50 billion to OpenAI, they are also going to have to dilute. I just don't think Amazon's going to do it here. I think Amazon's waiting for 220, 230 to dump those shares on the market. And, maybe that's going to take time. Nebius right there up 14%. Microsoft just went red. Iran is losing steam as well. Amazon's about to go red. About to go red. Why is AXTI down? Wasn't that up in the pre-market, AXTI? Yeah, wow. It was at 52, now down to 45, down 7%. I don't think this is dilution. I think this is general, pre-Jensen markets pump, markets dump type of analysis here on a lot of these different AI. Man, remember, this is a $2 billion company. You got a lot of people that are probably also trading it as much as they're investing in it. That's why that stock, I think, is down 7. Zeta just went red on the day. All right, so you're seeing some of your first names start to go red. Hims just went red on the day. Adobe continuing to get hit, dude. 245. I think that's a new 52-week low for Adobe. Oh, yes, AXTI also was up a lot year to date. So, down 7% is not that crazy. Adobe, yeah, 244, which happened today, was the low of the year. And you are now seeing Broadcom also hit 320. Now it's at 324. You're seeing Adobe potentially retest that level. D-Wave's up 5%. Nike's up 1%. PayPal's up 1%. Lemonade is up 3%. Did we get it? Are we at 670? There you go, 670 S&P. All right. So this is definitely something we wanted to see. We're breaking through it as well. 670.30, 1.23. This in conjunction with an Nvidia pump to around 187, I think would be kind of what the bulls are really looking for today. Nvidia 184.60. Micron, she's going for 455. She is going for 455 right here. Nebius still up. Nebius, if we can break through 130 and hold it, it's touching 130 again. 133.15. That's your level that you want to see that break above. 15% up on the day. And if that can, then, I mean, 141 is not that crazy to imagine it getting back to those levels. It's just, again, will they dilute today? Will they not? That's the other question people have to be ready for. Alpha is up 1%. Shopify is up 2%. Then Google is up 1% as well. Reddit, yes, this one. Where has that one been? Reddit's 136. All right, so this one touched 145 last week. Then it touched 132. So again, still stuck in that range. 136.75 on Reddit. Meta will pay upfront. Yeah, let's pull up the details of that deal because I didn't read too much about it yet. Meta 27 billion. Let's pull up the actual article here. Again, you know, this is, I don't own any of these other than Nebius. The NeoClouds. CoreWeave feels more like Nvidia's favorite, but it doesn't seem like they're building an overall cloud business. Iren, I really never loved management there. Nebius has a lot of equity stakes in a lot of other companies, and it seems like they're diversifying. Now, I don't know how big that company can become, but it does feel like they have a lot of potential in these different equity stakes with a variety of different deals. Then the question is just how big can their NeoCloud business ultimately scale to? SMH, that's up 2.6% as well. It's a dog shit deal. Is it? I have not read any of this, so let's look at this. The number's big, but again, the question is, again, the nuances of this deal. Under the 5-year agreement, Nebius will provide $12 billion of dedicated capacity across multiple locations based on one of the first large-scale deployments of NVIDIA Vera Rubin. Furthermore, in connection with access to these NVIDIA deployments, Meta has committed to purchase additional available compute capacity across certain upcoming Nebius clusters up to $15 billion over a 5-year period. Okay, so the deal is actually $12 billion with the understanding that it could be 27, which would put it at $5.4 billion a year if you divide that by 5. CEO says we're excited to keep moving forward with Meta. Yeah, that's all we got from the press release. That's it. So it's a $12 billion guaranteed, which if we do that by 5, that's $2.4 billion a year, and then $15 billion on the upside. I mean, I don't know if that's dog shit. That seems like a hyperscaler that's ready to commit. Wow, SanDisk. Memory not slowing down. SanDisk up 709. Yeah, I don't think that's dog shit. I think that's if anything, this is similar to the Microsoft deal, but it looks even better because obviously it's instead of 19 billion, 27 billion. But it's also very similar. The Microsoft deal was, I think, 17 billion plus a 5 billion additional capacity. That's when the stock went from like 40 to 100 back in November of 2025. It almost seems like even the wording is similar to that Microsoft deal. UNH up 1.19. HIMS continues to go red. Amazon still green at 208. Google holding its green on the day as well, 305. Here's the better question. Whether or not you think the deal is crappy, when is Iran going to announce something like that? And again, I'm not in this whole Iran Nebius beef. I don't care that much, but like you just haven't had Iran announce something massive like this in a while, right? Even on earnings, they didn't announce anything this crazy. The rumor was Anthropic was going to be, and that, I mean, I have not seen any press release on that playing out. So if Nebius is getting these deals, even if you don't like the unit economics of them, if the other guys aren't, if Applied Digital isn't getting it, if Cypher's not getting it, then if there's an obvious winner in this spot, it doesn't feel like the other ones. APLD, that's up 5% on the day. Zeta just went red officially, 1784. Palantir 152.50, and then Hoodie just under 75. just under 75. Trump's holding a press conference at 11:45. Okay, so we talked about that. That might not actually be about the war. That might be about the Save America Voting Act bill. So that might not have anything to do with the markets. ABC, Republican donors are quietly discussing a potential draft Rubio movement for the 2028 presidential election as Secretary of State Marco Rubio's influence rises in the Trump administration. Are we really going to have Rubio as the next president? Is that what's happening? South Korea up 7. I think a massive, massive move right here. South Korea up 7%. Mitch, you regret selling Nebius for Nvidia. So again, I sold 60% of my Nebius at 105. Obviously, stock's at 128. So yes, holding onto it would have led to some better gains. But again, for me, it was more de-risking. I'd rather have that money in Nvidia, rather not deal with the risks associated with something super high beta, given my portfolio is also super high beta. And, you know, the covered call premiums on Nvidia have continued to pay, and I think they will continue to pay. So, look, I like it. It makes sense. Ultimately, de-risking, I think, was a little bit good for me at this stage of my portfolio. Still have 40% of the position, and so happy with that. But I don't know, guys. Given the nature of how ugly this market's been, how choppy it's been, at some point, I also do need to de-risk in certain areas. And obviously, my portfolio is still very risky with Palantir, Hood, and Nvidia being the top 3. So I kind of like it. Nvidia continues to perform. Their stock continues to stay stuck. And I continue to add to that and milk it on the premiums. Now, Nebius has really good premiums. That's fair. But my shares would have been called away over the past 2 weeks, as Nebius is also more volatile than Nvidia. So that's another thing you have to watch out for, right? Because if you do want to run covered calls on Nebius, you're at least now in a little bit of a pickle as this thing continues to rally. I'm trimming IREN for AAOI. You know, that stock has once again, it's up 200% this year. They diluted, and this is why I keep bringing up dilution. You cannot forget about that. They dilute. The stock was at 130, went down all the way to 90. IREN just filed for $6 billion in dilution. Nebius already has an at the money they haven't used. But if you're the CEO and your stock is $10 away from all-time highs, you're gonna, you might start looking at your management team and saying, hey, maybe we need to raise some capital. And they wouldn't be wrong to do that. No Nebius long-term shareholder would get upset at them for doing that either, which unfortunately would hurt the stock, but it would also be bullish long-term for the company. So I think if you're getting into some of these smaller plays, just remember their dilution is something they need to do. Now, AAOI is already diluted, but who's to say if the stock doesn't go higher, they don't tap the equity markets again. 1.64% is that screen. Nebius already diluted. To my understanding, no. They filed for, how much was it? Like $5 billion of an ATM? Or was it 2.5 billion? Back in November of 2025. And they never used it. At least, I don't think they haven't used it yet. Also, they got an upgrade to 291 last week. I'm looking at it right now. RT Research upgraded the price target from 211 to 291. So that's also part of the reason they're getting a bump right here. S&P loses 670 just slightly. Loses 670 slightly. Yeah, it's 1.5 billion. There you go. 1.5 billion. Correct. So again, the question is, will they do it or not? And if they don't, then that's good. But if they do, it's just something people have to be ready for. 669.84 on the S&P. Is their short float 20%? Let me check. Let's check all the neo clouds right here. I actually haven't looked at this. So Nebius short float is 21.6, which is kind of aggressive, to be honest. CoreWeave is 17, also kind of aggressive. What the hell is IREN's then? IREN is at IREN has the lowest short float out of all three. IREN's at 15. That's interesting. IREN has announced the least number of deals, but it has the highest short float compared to all of these guys. Interesting. CoreWeave 83, that's losing its steam from 88. That one's coming down a bit. Meta also 640 to 628. SoFi goes slightly green again on the day. Shopify's up 2. Elf's up a little bit. ServiceNow's up a little bit. Salesforce also up a little bit. I added Raytheon last week. Again, I think the defense contractors, which, by the way, we got to talk about Anduril. I don't know if this trade is crowded or not. It feels crowded. Like, again, the time to heavily allocate to these things was before Venezuela, quite frankly, and then obviously before Iran. Now that we're in the midst of it, like, I feel like the market's pricing in that they're going to get purchase orders, they're going to get growth, unless the war continues. I mean, if the war obviously continues in a much longer fashion than what Trump has been saying, you know, maybe that's not the case. Raytheon's up 10% this year, which, again, that stock doesn't move as aggressively as it is. Anduril apparently on Friday got a $20 billion deal from the military. The contract has a ceiling of up to $20 billion. And, I mean, this is quite incredible. Sorry, this is from the Army, not the military, but $20 billion. I mean, the company's valuation is $60 billion. So they just got a third of their market cap in a contract, in one contract, which to me is bullish. And obviously, if you're an Anduril, this should be very good. Where's Kraken Robotics today? Because that's the Anduril proxy. That stock's up 4%. I think that stock's literally up because of that Anduril deal. And so, you know, that's bullish. But again, when it comes to the public defense contractors like a Lockheed or a Raytheon, they're not getting $20 billion contracts. And so, you know, if they get one of those types of deals, I think these stocks can do very well. But they've also made a big move this year. And if we have any sign that the war is ending, as Trump has been saying, then maybe those stocks just fade out. And you don't see, including Palantir. You know, Palantir's also got this defense premium on it. So if the war does come to an end, maybe those trades just aren't the strongest. Google right there, 305. S&P going for the high of day at 670.6. 670.4 right here. Upstart got upgraded. That's getting some love today. That's up 5.39%. AppLovin just went red. All of software just went red, or a decent chunk of it. CrowdStrike just went red. Salesforce just went red. IGV is very close to potentially going red. Netflix 95.38. Planet Labs, that's up 2%. Private credit still green. Blue Owl is paying you a nice 10% dividend to attract you to buy their stock if you want to take the risk. That stock's now down 30% this year. And then Nvidia, 184.50. Micron still moving. Are we above 455? No, we touched it though. 454.86, just below. Anduril and Archer do have a partnership. That is fair. That is fair. But again, Archer, we just haven't seen a lot of updates on them actually getting their eVTOLs into the world, but they do have a quote-unquote partnership with Anduril. Nebius right there, still 128. Nvidia 184. Raytheon at 207. Do we get any macro data today? I don't think we are. Canada inflation, we got it to 1.8%. This is actually the lowest in 7 months. That's nice to see, down from 2.3%. Obviously, if oil holds up, that's not going to be good for March, but you are seeing Canadian inflation come down. Again, PCE was in line with expectations on Friday. Didn't matter to the market given the GDP downgrade that we had, 0.7 versus 1.4, but hopefully that was only because of the shutdown. S&P high of day, there you go, 670.9. It's bouncing right off that level, but 670.9 is what we got. Okay, apparently Trump is talking because we're getting a bunch of quotes from Trump. Another phone call with a reporter. This time, this reporter is from PBS. Okay, let's see some of these quotes. So, he started with an overall assessment saying we're doing very well, reiterating comments about destroying Iran's military. He added, they want to make a deal, but they're not ready to make a deal, in my opinion. On the Karg Island is out of commission except for the pipes, which I left. I didn't want to hit the pipes because, you know, it's years of work to put them together. Said he would strike Iran again He said, yeah, I told him openly I'll knock the hell out of it. He noted he purposely left 100 yards around having to do anything with oil there. Didn't even come close, adding it takes a lot to rebuild the infrastructure. He continued, I left a lot of infrastructure in Tehran because if you did it, it's years of building. I could knock out the electric plants in 1 hour. But if I do that, that's years of rebuilding and it's trauma. So I'm trying to hold off on that kind of thing. He said the conflict is a very small price to pay after years of terror from the regime, and that oil prices will drop like a rock as soon as it's over. When I asked for a timeline on those dropping, he said, well, as soon as the war is over, I don't believe it will be long. Final question I got was about American troops on the ground in Iran and whether he sees that happening. I don't want to say that, says Trump. When I asked if his thinking has changed on the issue, he said, no, it has not changed, but he just didn't want to discuss any strategy with the reporter. Okay, so the same stuff he's been saying for the past week with all these small reporters that he's calling up, which is, I don't want to put boots in the ground, bragging about all the different sites he could attack, and then once again claiming that the Iranian war will come to an end soon. Again, I think every day he's like calling these little reporters just to like get his quotes into the ecosystem so that people can, you know, run with the headline that Trump says war is going to end soon and that could keep oil down. But, you know, as of now, that is how Trump has been kind of making the argument. We have home builder sentiment, folks. Pull that up. That's some of the macro data we got today. And this is the housing market index. Let's get an update on this as well.
Is considered negative. The index stood at 39 1 year ago. Now, this reading was taken this month as mortgage rates moved higher due to the war in Iran and fears over oil and inflation. Of the index's three components, current sales conditions rose 1 point to 42, buyer traffic rose 3 points to 25, and future sales expectations rose 2 points to 49. The NAHB noted many buyers are sitting on the fence waiting for lower mortgage rates, and the builders are still facing elevated land, labor, and construction costs. Nearly 2/3 report they continue to offer sales incentives in a bid to firm up the market. 37% of builders cut prices in March, up slightly from 36% in February. Sarah?
Okay, a little better sentiment, though. Thank you very much, Diana Olick. Guys, it's a big week for data and macro. We've got a big Fed meeting in the middle of the week. The FOMC releases not just a decision on interest rates, but the dots. We get the projections for how many rates they think are going to happen, which is interesting because the market has really changed.
We do have the Fed meeting this week, and that Fed meeting also will have the summary of economic projections. Again, the probability for a rate cut I'm looking at right now is 0.9%. So that is also a big catalyst after GTC in terms of how the market will react to one of Jay Powell's final meetings as a Fed chair.
Its view on this, now only expecting maybe one cut this year. We'll also get the PPI, wholesale inflation, on Wednesday, and then, of course, jobless claims highly in focus every week on Thursday. Just want to show you what's happened with the two key inputs for the Fed since the last meeting, right? They've got a dual mandate, which is to keep inflation steady and to keep jobs, basically unemployment. So let's start with inflation. The PCE is their preferred measure, and we just got the January reading. It's delayed because of quirks with the data, because of the shutdown. So in March, we get the January reading. Where is it? It's 2.8. But what you can see, and we did a short-term chart to show you just in the last year, it's elevated and it's kind of coming in on the hotter side. I mean, the January report was a little bit better than expected on the headline number, but core was firmer. And as you can see, the Fed's probably going to want more proof that the trend is going down or at least stabilizing again, especially ahead of the storm of higher gas prices, which we expect. It's not factored in here, but we are seeing a little bit firmer inflation. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated. And by the way, you can see CPI too. Just, they track PCE, but CPI as well, just to show you. There's the gap in the government shutdown. It's elevated, right? It's better because it's 2.5%, away from the 3%, but it's not 2%. Now, where it gets complicated is on jobs, because the other part of the Fed's mandate is to keep job growth steady. And guess what's happened? Job growth has stalled. We got a negative number on jobs last month, and the unemployment rate, which is the other part of what they target, it's risen to 4.4%. Is it a disaster? No. But when it moves up, that's usually when the Fed cuts rates. So they're kind of in this uncomfortable spot, David, where, the jobs numbers would suggest they should be cutting. The inflation numbers suggest maybe they should be holding. and we haven't even seen the impact on gas prices yet.
And we haven't really seen, or we're still trying to understand the impact of AI, which we're going to talk about, as we should, almost every day here, in terms of the productivity increases that it may bring into enterprise, but it may be coupled with, Sarah,
job losses,
or certainly lack of hiring, if any hiring. And if you're the Fed, how you think about that is got to be an important component of everything else you're taking in.
Right, because
the interesting thing about this is Jay Powell is going to have to try to navigate a variety of issues on this meeting. And I don't know if he's fully able, Nvidia losing some steam right here, touching below 184, if he's fully able to put all these narratives together. So the first narrative is that AI is going to be losing jobs, which it's kind of obvious now based on all the headlines that we've seen that AI is bad for jobs, which should mean rate cuts because we should protect the labor market. But you've got oil that's been elevated for the past couple of weeks, which all signs are showing it's going to at least continue to hold above historical levels. We're at 92 today, which is good. It's not 102, but it's also not 72, which will put pressure on inflation. And then you've got the revisions that we had in 2025, which were 1 million jobs that were down. That news came out before this. It came out like 2 weeks ago, which is before the recent Fed meeting. And then 3 weeks ago, when Bostic was talking along with Goolsbee, they said that we don't think the labor market is that big of an issue, even though in January they said the labor market is our biggest concern in terms of the downside risk. So I wonder if we have a 180 in terms of how they're thinking about labor. Obviously, what they're pricing in with the Supreme Court tariff decision potentially stopping whatever level of perceived tariff inflation, along with oil prices increasing inflation writ large. And then what do you do in that scenario? You probably don't cut rates, but in the summary of economic projections right now, there's only one cut scheduled, which is in September. And if they put out saying, yeah, we think it's only one cut left for the rest of the year, the next cut would be in March of 2027. I mean, I don't know how positive the markets will react to that. Now, having said that, is he a lame duck because Kevin Warsh is going to come in and totally flip everything upside down and change the narrative, and maybe we get more than even 2 cuts this year? I think now, over the coming months, the market's going to try to figure out what exactly to price in from the Fed perspective. 74.95 on Robinhood. But this FOMC meeting we know we're not getting a cut. It's Jay Powell's commentary around the equity markets and the labor market that I think are more important. And Bitmine getting a high of day 23. When's the last time it was at 23? It's been a while, guys. Yeah, early February 4th. It's been a while since we've seen Bitmine get this love, which is, Ethereum really getting this love at 2,300 now. And Bitcoin as well going green. Nvidia headline: we have plans to deploy Nvidia Rare Rubin across the U.S., deploying the largest Nvidia GB300 NVL72 cluster in New York. I would imagine Nvidia is going to have a lot of press releases over the next couple days about different things they're putting out. What's your opinion on ASML? ASML continues to be one of the most important companies on the planet when it comes to the broader AI supply chain. 1383. This thing peaked at 1,500, now down at 1,380. I mean, look, if you're bullish AI, obviously lithography, these guys have a basic monopoly on. Not growing as fast as some of the other AI names. So it depends. Are you a growth investor, or kind of, are you buying this as a sort of fundamental core element of the AI ecosystem? But I like it. And the fact that it was at 600 7 months ago shows how much growth they've been able to have. Wow, S&P 671. Okay, now we're getting some actual juice here. Netflix is moving, Robinhood's moving. Tesla almost above 400. I think we are above it, right? Tesla, yep, 402. Well above it now, 2.8%. What are your thoughts on Melly? I like Melly, but there's kind of like ASML. You got to buy it and hold it. You can't ask for too much. They're the only stock in the entire market that has put up 30 quarters of consecutive growth of 30% or more. It's actually incredible. They just had a lot of issues in Latin America, which has been causing you've had like multiple downgrades over the past 2 weeks, which, I think the analysts are just not giving it an easy ride right now. Nebby is still holding on to that 14% move. Google at 306, but Melly is long, but like a legit long. Reddit getting a little pumpy pump. There you go. 139 up 5% as well. Eric says, dude, last week I realized how much I missed your streams in the morning when you didn't stream. I missed them as well. Unfortunately, this week we're not going to be able to do the market close every day because it's smack dab in the middle of the day. California, the market closes at around 1 p.m., which is like literally in the middle of everything. But we will make sure to have a market open every single day. I promise not to oversleep like I did last time in Vegas. I hope. But I should be okay for the next 4 days at 5 a.m. Once you get up and you just start the show, you're not that tired anymore. So like once you just press go live, you get into it. You just have to get through that initial phase. There's that one day in Vegas, I literally just could not wake up. But outside of that, we should be okay. But yeah, market close. I think Steve's going to do it on Tuesday and Thursday. And then next week, we'll be back to the regular schedule. Nvidia right there, 184. Raytheon's up a little bit. S&P, the high of the day. How do you like California? I love California. I just can't live here. It's beautiful, though. Like, it's gorgeous. It's just, dude, it's expensive. Like, I was looking at some of the properties as I was driving by just on Zillow. You're talking about literal sheds that are worth $3 million. It's like, okay, no. Like, we're gonna live somewhere else. If Jason, we had lunch with Jason yesterday. He told me a story. He was like, a house burnt down 10 years ago. And the burnt down house went for $1 million. And that was considered cheap. It's just ridiculous. Some of these prices are insane. And so I think people love the weather here, which is fair. I don't know how they could love the taxes. But no, it's beautiful. I've been to California many times. I think this is like my 100th time coming to California. I think the first time I came was 2015. And to this area around this San Francisco, San Jose area. So I like it, but I don't know if I could live here. Now, Sable Offshore, Trump used the DPA, Defense Production Act, on Friday to force them to drill. That stock was up 10. Now it's only up 1.3. Went from 20 to 17. So this one also has been a fade on that headline, even though that was a relatively bullish headline. Tesla right there. Still at 402. Chat says Arkansas is beautiful and cheap. That is also fair. I don't know if I could ever live in Arkansas, though. I still need to be in a city. I still need to be near a city at this stage of life. I just need like buildings around me. Like, I'm not at that point where I just want peace and serenity and full, like, I don't want to be bothered. But as you get older, I think those parts are a lot more valuable to people. Sandus right there, 7-Eleven. That's up 7.5. I also, again, if I had to pick between California and New York, I'd pick New York any day of the week. But that's also because I love the finance part of New York. California has more of that tech ecosystem and environment. It is cool, though, to like walk down the street and see billboards of like I saw a CoreWeave billboard. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because I cover CoreWeave. So just seeing, you're not going to see that in New York. I could just see random CoreWeave billboards. It is kind of cool to be surrounded by this much tech. CoreWeave, though, losing a lot of its move now, up 1.87. It was up 7%. Iren still up 7. So Iren and Nebius are holding on to the move. CoreWeave's giving it up. Serve Robotics, that's up 6. Ethereum just below 23. Global hedge funds sold shares of banks, insurance, fintech, and trading companies, making financials the most sold stock sector this year. I saw that headline on Friday as well, as per Goldman Sachs. The financials are just sell now, ask questions later. And so far it's worked. Yeah, I think we showed this on Friday, did I? Yeah, I think I showed this on Friday. This was the chart. Largest monthly outflow from financials that we've seen since 2017. So financials definitely getting it. There he is. There's Mr. Jason in the chat. We'll probably meet up later today. But Jason grew up around this area, around San Jose. So like he's very familiar with this entire area. And I asked him, why does he stay here? He was like, I grew up here. It's just part of who I am now. Even though he's not a fan of the taxes either. South Korea still up 6. Amazon up 1. Amazon goes green. SanDisk. Dude, if Micron doesn't have a good earnings, I am very scared for the memory stocks, but there is no world in which Micron doesn't have a good earnings. I mean, they are expected to grow EPS, I believe something like 300% in a couple days. Earnings estimates 866, which would be double last quarter. Forget last year. It would be double last. That would be 100% quarter over quarter. Revenue Street's expecting 19 billion. Last quarter they did 13.7. I mean, there's no world in which I think they have a bad earnings. I just don't know if the stock will reflect it, but it's definitely being priced in before it happens. Same thing with SanDisk. Nvidia 184.30 right now. No, Davis is not with me. He will be with me though in LA, which we will have the meetup for LA March 28th. Again, putting the link right here in the chat. This is happening in about 2 weeks. After LA, we will have Chicago. I will have the link for people to get tickets for Chicago probably by tomorrow morning. So Chicago will be happening soon. May 9th is the day. Jason will also be in LA. So it'll be fun to have a lot of people there. Nvidia 184, AMD 197. AMD still not breaking over 200. You need to start vlogging your trips. You know, I agree. I feel like I should do that. I've never been a vlogger, but that would be kind of fun to like officially vlog the meetups. That is a good idea. That's something we should do for LA. Meta 633. I feel like we're getting some more AI headlines right here. Seeing the S&P get a bid. Okay, we have Bessent potentially talking China and Iran. Let's pull that up. That's, I think, also helping out.
Not true.
And there's a false narrative out there that if the meetings are delayed, it wouldn't be delayed because the president's demanded that China police the Straits of Hormuz. It would be
because there was a report out to that effect this morning.
That's completely false. So if the meeting for some reason is rescheduled, it would be rescheduled because of logistics. The president wants to remain in D.C. to coordinate the war effort.
So basically said those reports are indeed false. I was going to use a word in French that I figured, but then I realized our audience is global and would probably know what I was getting at. Then we, of course, pivoted to the issue of the day. That is the war. That is the price of oil. That is the Strait of Hormuz. That is the shipping blockade. And there's this, listen, everybody's hoping that there is some kind of undoing of the risk of the logjam of the shipping back. I don't want to say the strait is closed because plenty of ships have gone through. And in fact, Secretary Bessent talked about that in a way, and he said that Iran, the U.S. is allowing, and I'm trying to be very careful parsing my words here, David and Sarah, the U.S. is allowing Iranian ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz, and that there's also maybe a bigger shortage, daily shortage of oil than some on the market may think. Listen to this.
It looks like the deficit is about 10 or 14, and that's before any of the ships are coming out of the straits. So if you think about the Russian oil, that is somewhere between 9 to 11 days, 12 days of supply without the market moving. There's Iranian oil that's out in the water right now, about 140 million barrels. The Saudis, they have supplies stored around the world that they can release. And then the global SPR release, largest ever, it was 400 million barrels.
So I know you guys, listen, we hit Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, UBS, everybody else. They've all got their own estimates. There is the estimate that not only does the Treasury Secretary have and use, and they would have pretty good information, guys, but remember, Scott Bessent, former longtime, extremely successful, extremely wealthy hedge fund manager who actually did a lot of work in Riyadh back in his previous life as a fund manager. So the 10 to 14 number, but they think that we can make that up. And again, it all comes down to how long this lasts and how long that deficit goes on.
Yeah, the releasing of the 400 million barrels of oil, as bullish as that is in general, I don't know if that's going to solve our issue. Sandisk right there, 712, and by solving the issue, that 10 to 14 million barrel of deficit, I mean, that could obviously continue if the war continues. So, like, I think they bought themselves about 2 weeks with the release of the oil from the SPR. But I don't know if that's going to be enough to fully change stuff. Now, again, Trump said soon. He said that a week ago. He also said 4 weeks for the war a month ago, or not a month ago, 3 weeks ago. So we have about a week left for that potential 4-week timeline to come to an end. It would be surprising to me if we actually ended the war anytime soon. But it also wouldn't be surprising because maybe, we claim victory and we leave and Trump gets to find a way to get out of this. Rocket Lab right there. That is also up 4% as well. Use the Meta glasses to vlog. That might actually be the best use case of those Meta glasses. That actually might be the best use case. I've never thought of using it to vlog. Maybe that's the best way to kind of show everything that's happening. ASTS, that's up 2. Rocket Lab's up 4. Navitas still up 11. I don't see a headline on that, but that is up 11. And Uber is up 2%. Chad says, I will cancel you. I had dinner with Chad last week. Imagine I was having dinner with him, like, hey, Chad, you're in my vlog while we're eating. See, that's my point. It feels so uncomfortable for the other person. I'm wearing my glasses, having dinner, and then everything he's saying is being recorded. Like, that's just so weird, dude. Like, it's not natural. Versus at least if you take out your phone, you can, like, record a specific moment for it. Or your camera. Dell right there, that's also 2%. But it is at least a better use case than some of the other stuff I've heard. Wow, you guys really want to vlog. All you guys saying we want to vlog. Okay, maybe we vlog it. Maybe we make an official vlog. The problem with vlogging, I feel like I've tried to be like, I'm also like focused on covering the event. And with vlogging, you're trying to like, capture certain moments and stuff. Whereas with covering an event, you're like actually trying to find the updates, see how it relates to the market, get all the content out. But on the meetups, I think it's less about covering an event, obviously, because there's no like big market event, and that could be more focused on vlogging. But like at GTC, I do not want to walk around like pointing the camera at a bunch of people. That just, I don't know, feels kind of weird. So we'll try to do it for the meetups. Alf right there is up 1 after going down 10 last week, and Shopify, that's also up 3. We need to see you monitoring the situation. No one will talk to you openly. Yeah, exactly. That is true. What do people think of the Karp interview? So that one officially came out over the weekend. I think a decent chunk of you guys enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. Karp, I think kind of the main takeaway that I got from that interview, he's on this riff now about really embracing the artistic nature of building Palantir. And I think one thing of that interview that he got across was that, for us to get these operating margins, for us to work in the way that we're working, there needs to be a whole level of artistry mixed with business, which, quite frankly, I think he's right about. I don't think you get the types of results that Palantir is getting, which is, again, just better than every single other company in software, without having that magic. And I'm so excited for you guys to see the customer interviews, because, again, I think a lot of these are going to be really insightful to remember why Palantir software is a bit different than these other software companies. And so those should be out over the coming days. Serve Robotics, that's up 5%. Again, they had a good earnings last week. And then Micron still pushing 5% right here. It was cold, yes. There were these like tents that were set up for these immersive experiences at PCon. And unfortunately, it just ended up snowing and got a bit too cold. The day before, it was like 70 degrees. So It's just the nature of the weather. But Carp loved it because he's like a skiing guy. So for him, he enjoyed it. I was freezing though. I was just like, this is a little cold. But overall, it was still fun. Nvidia 184.36. 184.36. You were breathing heavily. Yeah, I could have edited that out. I didn't notice until the video came out that you could hear my breathing. Because when I was editing it, I didn't have my headphones in, so I couldn't hear it. And then when I posted and I heard it, I was like, oh, you guys can really hear me breathing. I was like breathing for my life because it was so cold. I probably could have edited that out. But outside of that, I think the interview was hopefully not too bad. The set, I think it was just crazy, bro. The fact that they got me the bricks. Again, if you didn't hear me on Friday, I didn't ask for that. They just they did it themselves. So it was a big surprise by Sasha and the whole team there. But I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, what else? What else do we have? What else do we have? Amit, what do you think about Palantir March 27th, 177.50 covered calls, playing it safe? I think that's a decent strike. However, I don't like doing these multiple weeks out. I would want to keep it every Friday just because you just don't know how the situation can play out. I mean, let's say Nvidia gets up to 200 based on whatever headline they announced today. The whole market's probably rallying with it, including Palantir. So I would be a little cautious on the covered call weeks out before these big events. But obviously, if you're just a bit skeptical in the green holding, then this is the perfect time to run them because you get the majority of the premium. Robinhood right there, 75.18. Rocket Lab as well. Still holding 4%. Hims is going red completely. This one is surprising, dude. Very surprising. 4% down. 23.80. Still up from 15, which if someone bought at 15, you'd be very happy. But that one's still getting a bit red. Yeah, someone did just buy $1 million worth of puts on Nvidia. 177.50 is the strike. I think this has got to be a hedge on someone's long exposure here. Let me see the expiration on this. Expiration is in 2 days. This is definitely a hedge. March 18th. I mean, who knows? Maybe Nvidia does drop 7% in the next couple of days, but hopefully not. Ondas interview also comes out this week. We'll have all of them out probably on like Wednesday or Thursday. And people will be able to see all of them. Tesla 403, that's green. Why'd you guys dress the same? Actually, I was wearing a black jacket the whole AIP con, but it got drenched in the rain. So then I took out a hoodie that I had instead, and I didn't know that Carp was going to wear a blue jacket either, and so it ended up being blue on blue, but it wasn't really supposed to. Okay, S&P, again, she's not like 1.26% is a pretty big move from Friday, 671.40 down to 670. If we can hold that, Nebius also is not really giving up the gains. 129, that's up 14%. As that one's holding on to its momentum. Reddit's up 5%. Archer's up 1%. Like, all else considered, it feels like this has a chance to last. It's an hour into the day. We're still pretty green. The red candles that we had have been relatively small and or they've been bought up. Financial still kind of green. Photonics plays are up. Software also, you thought it would give back a little bit. Not really. Still up 1% on IGV. What about SoFi? SoFi is, SoFi. But outside of that, you're still seeing some love. ASML 1385. That is also green. Okay, let's see what else. What else are we getting in right now? 1030. Let's see if we get any slam either, or if we hold on. Canadian inflation, we talked about that. That's lower. Yeah, the Trump thing at 11:45 is not going to be about the market. It's going to be about the Saving America Voting Act. So maybe he'll take questions about it, but I don't think it's going to be the best. Why do you think Nebius is not giving the terms of the deal? It looks good, but I don't know why they hide the contracted megawatts. I think this was one of those deals from the press release that I'm seeing that's more an agreement for Meta. From Meta's side, it's like, hey, we need a lot of capacity. From Nebius' side, it's like, hey, we need a lot of growth. So we'll work out the details later. We'll figure out how to contract the exact megawatts or gigawatts of the deal later. But let's agree and tell the market that we both desperately need each other. Nebius wants the revenue. Meta wants the capacity. And so they signed the partnership. Now, again, I think it's a fair point to ask, well, how much of that $27 billion is going to be profit? Because are we going to value Nebius on a sales multiple? AKA, the market cap is $32 billion. They just signed a $27 billion 5-year deal. On paper, that looks extremely undervalued because, theoretically, the sales growth is a decent chunk of the market cap. So, that should result in some upside multiple expansion. But if the market stops caring about pure sales growth, like, just the pure ARR growth, and they want to see actual net income, then I think the shift of attitude around the neoclouds potentially changes, which is kind of what you've been seeing with CoreWeave. I mean, CoreWeave said they have $70 billion in backlog. $70 billion in backlog revenue. The stock went from 95 to 75. Why? Because I think the market was just annoyed about all the other things that they have going on with debt to equity, dilution, and then supply concerns, even though CoreWeave's telling you, dude, our market cap's 40 billion and we have 70 billion in backlog that we have yet to collect in revenue. So it's just a question of, I guess, how much the market cares about the broader top line growth versus, becoming a bigger company and inevitably having to show some profitability for that company to get a real multiple. Zeta right there, 1795, SanDisk. And so that's one of the reasons I'm a fan of Zeta. I mean, they flipped the corner on profitability. And so the market cap's $4 billion. They're going to do freaking $1.7 billion in revenue. So already on the sales multiple, it's cheap, but now they're actually profitable. And they're going to continue to be profitable. And if they can grow profitability at the same rate they're growing revenue, or if not much higher than that, you should get a re-rating. So I think that's the bigger question for the neoclouds. Bitcoin going red, 74 to 73. Got a $1,000 candle right there. Rubrik, they had a great earnings. I don't know why this one got hit. I mean, Sam was on the show on Friday, and he chalked it up to the whole software sell-off continuing to hurt some of these smaller plays, even though they are more niche. They beat earnings by 100%. The street expected them to lose 11 cents. They brought in 4 cents of profitability. So it was weird for Rubrik to get hit that bad. Iranian foreign minister says reports claim some neighboring states which host U.S. forces and permit attacks on Iran are also actively encouraging the killings. Okay, so similar to what the Iranian foreign minister said last week about targeting allies of the U.S. If they continue to attack Iran. Jensen speaking at 2 p.m., folks. 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern. Jensen will be speaking. Amid is food included in the LA ticket? Yes. Food, dinner will be included in the LA ticket. If you come to the meetup, there will be a cash bar, so you'll be able to buy drinks there, but dinner will be included for the meetup ticket as well. Bitcoin, that's a really ugly drop. $1,000 downside. The NASDAQ also, did it just drop? Yeah, the NASDAQ as well. It's still green on the day, but 602 to 600. S&P just lost 670. Nvidia just lost 185, down to 183.80. Okay, so I guess your first kind of more aggressive red candles of the day at 10:30. Let's see if they actually continue to gap down. But yes, you are seeing some reds. Adobe cannot catch a break, dude. Down another 1%. Vertiv is up 4%. I don't think it's any Iran news. I don't think it's these quotes from the foreign minister that's causing this. I mean, they're saying the same thing they've been saying for the past 2 weeks. Iraq foreign minister just said Iraq will face major difficulties in exporting oil through the Gulf. Again, not something that we haven't heard. Where's oil? Oil was at 92. Oil got a little spike in 93. So when oil and the VIX spike at the same time, that's when the S&P probably has some weakness. The VIX also got a spike from 2370 to 2420. So now we have to see if oil and the VIX continue holding that spike. UK is most likely happening in August. Had some talks about it over the weekend. By the way, if you're in the UK, please message me because we already started looking at venues and these prices are insanity. So please email my email if you're in the UK and if you have any hookups, because we're gonna need some help on this one. Like, I know London's expensive, but goodness, bro. I was like, okay, what we're getting quoted is kind of ridiculous. So let me know. And August most likely will be the UK. Figma's pumping. Is Figma getting a pump? Figma up 3.5. That is getting some love right there. Figma was at freaking 33 after earnings, and this thing still hasn't been able to hold on any momentum either. Yeah, I will be talking to Tess as well, and she's already offered to help. Just if anyone like works at a venue or knows any people, you can definitely reach out. Figma 2690, S&P 669. Dude, realistically, until Jensen speaks, none of this price action is going to be legit. We got to see what Jensen says for this to move around. Gordon Ramsay would host it for the publicity. That would be funny. What about jobless claims? Initial jobs claims last week were actually good. Again, the jobs data doesn't necessarily signal the ugliest reads, but anecdotally, when you see Meta fire 20% of the workforce, even though it's not fully been confirmed, that stuff doesn't feel the best. But like overall, the hard macro data has not really said that jobs are in as much dismay as people think, which is why the Fed is, struggling to want to cut rates. Jensen speaking at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. for Jensen. Ori, thanks for being a member. Is AIPCon a tailwind for Palantir? I just think in general, Palantir showed off a lot of different partnerships with a variety of different companies, which, is it a tailwind? I mean, yeah, showing off new partnerships is always a tailwind for any broader company, but realistically, if they can keep up this 70% growth that they're guiding towards, that is the biggest tailwind, regardless of what happens to the stock. If they can keep up that growth, I think that's really what the market cares about. I mean, look at Nebius. Why it's getting a 13% pump? Because $27 billion with Meta is going to lead them to grow ARR at what, 5x this year? I mean, when you put up that type of growth, the market definitely starts paying more attention. Salesforce, that's also up 2%. Do you have information on the Chicago meetup? We will have an official link tomorrow. So we should have all the information, location, all that stuff tomorrow. And how much will Chicago tickets be? Probably 100. LA was 115. Chicago has to be a little cheaper because it's not LA, so most likely looking at $100. And again, we don't make a margin on any of these tickets. All of this is going right back into covering food and security and the venue, all that stuff. So 100 is probably what it's going to be at. Robinhood at 74. The Q's just below 600. S&P losing 669 now. This is the biggest red candle we've seen so far. But it's still red. CoreWeave also up 1.65%. Chad says, can I come to your Chicago meetup? Yes, Chad, you are more than welcome to come to the Chicago meetup. That would be fun, dude. Chad would have like 50 people in front of him, though, asking about the ontology. Chad, you're going to be working during this meetup if you come here. Like, you will be filled, like, even Chris. Chris didn't, Chris thought when he came to the New York meetup, it would be fun. And after 2 hours, Chris comes up to me. He's like, bro, I'm a little tired. I'm like, why? He's like, I've been talking for 4 hours straight. I was like, dude, people want to get your opinion on the stock market. So it will be more work than fun, given the questions you're going to have to answer. All right, guys, I think we're holding on to the green. We're not really giving it up across the board. This is now up to Jensen. This is now up to Mr. Jensen to keep this going. Yeah, a lot of you guys are asking for Chicago. All right, we're gonna have the link out. That's why I put out that Google form last week to see what people say about. There's an overwhelming amount of people that care about the Chicago one. So May 9th, we'll have the official link tomorrow, and we will get Chicago in action. And it should be fun. So it's Chicago in May. June is Singapore. I'll have details on that very soon as well. July is nothing. August is the UK, most likely. And then November will be Texas. And I think that'll be it for the year. There'll be 6 for the year. Then 2027, we'll retool and see how we can make these even better. But that's most likely the schedule now. Yeah, S&P lows of the day. Even with the lows of the day, it's still up 1%, which is not too bad. So if it can kind of just hold here, Nebius as well, lows of the day, but still up 12%. Nvidia also lows of the day, but still up 2% right here. Tesla lost 403. If we can at least keep these levels, that would be nice. Yeah, we're probably not doing Miami. Miami, what we're gonna do Miami? We're gonna do Miami next January. So next January, when we start off the year, we're not gonna do New York instead of making it, because it was freaking cold. Miami will start off January of 2027. We did a meetup in the Bay Area last year. We'll probably do it again in 2027. But we are doing LA, but probably next year we'll do Bay Area. Which, a lot of tech and finance people are there, so that definitely makes sense. We did that last year. Bloom is down 6%. Is it? This one's also been stuck in a range. Yeah. From the highs, 162 to 150. This one's also taking a hit. But again, this thing was at 70 a while ago. What about Antarctica? I think we will get Steve to go to the UK. I think we will. We're getting him to go to LA. He said he's coming to Chicago. Maybe we'll get him into the UK. Maybe. Amit, I just emailed you. Are you the person that said, F you, retard, stop being pro-Ayatollah? Just got that email 5 minutes ago. See, this is what politics is very... All caps, subject, stop being pro-Ayatollah. And then the email says, F you, retard. No, that was me. Okay, understood. Politics, baby. It's politics. It's just so funny, right? People, they need to make sure you see their concerns about you. Just funny. It's like emails just F you, retard. And then stop being pro-Ayatollah. I don't know. It was pro-Ayatollah. I don't know. I was maybe that's what the perception is, I guess. Pro-MAGA, pro-Ayatollah, you're this, you're that. That's good, though. You need people to think you're pro-everything so that you're neutral. I believe the proper term is palantard. Yes, the proper term is palantard. Okay. Bank of America reaches settlement in principle and civil lawsuit brought by Jeffrey Epstein accusers. We're not talking that much about the Epstein files anymore. Just putting it out there. We are definitely not talking about it as much because there's a war going on. So all those headlines tend to not get as much attention. I don't know. Maybe they will after the war's over, but I feel like now that the files are out, you need like a lot of juice to really get people to care. I'm sure people still care, but it's just, it's tough when you have a war going on for the media to continue covering the same thing. That was 100% J Cal. Oh my gosh. Amid is pro bricks. Yes. I must admit, I forgot about the Epstein files for a minute. I mean, dude, so did I. Like when you have so many headlines breaking out about the war and like you're trying to analyze it and then oil's going up, you're looking at the macro, like, yeah, some of those stories, they end up not getting as much attention. And I wonder if that changes if this thing ends anytime soon. Tesla's still 400, ASML 1385, S&P 668. Yeah, markets are pretty much flat now. I mean, where they're not doing anything interesting here. I think everything's waiting for Jensen. VG is also down 4. Shop bottomed at 107 2 weeks ago, 125. Hit 145, but still down from those levels as well. What do you think about the Powell investigation being dropped? Yeah, so we talked about that on Friday. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the district court came out and said they see zero substantial evidence, was the quote, on why Powell should be investigated. Now, Trump was not happy about that, but look, I'm not involved in that court case. I can only go by what evidence was put forth, and based on what they said, they don't think there's any room to prosecute Powell for spending $2 billion on some new renovation. And so I guess that's not going to be an issue anymore. Realistically, remember, Trump also was trying to put pressure on Powell to cut rates, and that's why you had that investigation start in January. But if there's no evidence, then I guess there's no evidence. Iran up 5, South Korea up 5, Applied Digital is up 2. SK Hynix, yes, that's up 11%. It's up 11%. That's why South Korea is getting some more love. What is happening to SoFi? The stock can't hold 18. Yeah, it is kind of weird, dude. Every time it gets the pump above. Yeah, this is now officially below Noto's buying price, right? I wonder if Noto buys more. I wonder if he buys more. He doesn't need to. I mean, he's bought plenty of stock. But I wonder if he does buy more. See, I don't even know if SoFi triple beats next earnings, if that's going to be enough. All the private credit names, by the way, just went red, like actually really red. Blue Owl was up 2, now it's down 2. KKR is down 1. Apollo's down 3. That's why SoFi is getting hit even harder right now. At this point, this is so much more rooted in the perception of credit. Gold just went red, below 5,000, and silver just went red 0.5%. I'll let him buy more. I'm not buying more above 15. That's fair. Steve went bearish SoFi again, did he? That's the one stock. Steve has loved SoFi for so long, but he was so bullish on them in 2022, and it just didn't work. And then he got bearish in 23. Then he got bullish in 24. It's one of those stocks he's had a love-hate relationship with for a while, but he hasn't sold. Every time I've talked to him, he's thought about it, but he's just never, because he just loves Noto too much. And he still won't buy hood. So that's how you know how much he loves SoFi. Holding on to it. Why are you in Cali again? GTC event for Nvidia. So that's why I will be there. Adobe, are we trying to break green? Adobe is trying, yeah, 244 to 248. Adobe had a good earnings, dude. I can't blame anyone that wants to take a flyer here on Adobe. I just think you can't be buying Adobe to buy Adobe. You have to be buying Adobe to express your general sentiment around software. But if you're expressing sentiment around software, I wonder if Adobe is the play. I know Michael Burry is, he loves this one. But I wonder if that momentum continues. Let's hear from Gil Loria from DA Davidson. He was actually at Pouncer AI PCon. I got to meet this guy and his take on what to expect for NVIDIA.
A lot of, but realistically speaking, NVIDIA still has a big lead. TPUs are really the only competitive product. And as long as NVIDIA doesn't rest on its laurels, they will maintain that lead, even in inference, even though that's a different market and competitive dynamic. And again, it goes back to Jensen Huang just sees farther into the future. He's secured capacity with TSMC. He's secured capacity with the memory companies. And so he's just 2 steps ahead of everybody else. He's not letting them catch up.
Yeah. And finally, I guess we'll just end quickly with Meta, because I know you covered that as well. They inked this deal with Nebius. I mean, the spending just continues at a pace to which we've never seen, I guess, Gil. Fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta, they are not giving up. They want to make sure that they have enough data center capacity to provide their own use as well as their customers' use. And they all want to win. And Meta is doing everything it can to win. It's slightly smaller, doesn't have quite as much cash flow as those other guys. So that's why they need to leverage third parties as well. So that includes Oracle, CoreWeave, and now a really big piece from Nebius. Now they need to pay for it, which is why they're looking at very deep cost cuts, as much as 20% of the workforce, in order to pay for their data centers, as well as the extra data center capacity they're buying from other players.
Gil, we'll see what Jensen has to say at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got much more for you on the tech trade ahead when legendary Silicon Valley investor Bill Gurley joins us with his take on AI's impact on the workforce.
So the biggest thing that he said about this NVIDIA conference is that future growth potential against analyst expectations. Because again, what Gil is talking about and what DA Davidson has been so bullish on when it comes to NVIDIA, they used to be bearish, they actually flipped bullish a couple quarters ago, is not only this idea of the Vera Rubin ramp up, but the capacity for their supply chains to actually meaningfully scale in a world in which most other AI data center plays have had supply chain issues. NVIDIA's been the one company where their supply chains have been so rock solid. They had one delay back in 2024. Outside of that, you haven't really heard of those. If we can get a 500 billion in 5 quarters types of number, which is what we got at the last GTC when NVIDIA pumped over 200, this was back in October, I think the market's really going to like that. I think they're going to be happy about it. But does Colette, the CFO, does Jensen, do they give any of those massive numbers in terms of the headlines? And, does the street react to it positively? Nebius 127, Pouncer 152. If they do, though, I think people would be happy about that. What if Meta buys Nebius? I don't think Meta would buy Nebius. I mean, maybe, but it's a $30 billion company. Meta would have to pay a premium on that. I also don't think the management team at Nebius would want to sell. Yeah, I could see some of the other neoclouds getting eaten up by other neoclouds, to be honest, like some neocloud consolidation. I don't know if the hyperscalers themselves would buy them out. May you think Microsoft is safe haven? Yes, I think Microsoft is one of the easiest sleep well at night stocks that we have right here. It's trading at 21 times forward earnings. The downside on these guys is the OpenAI exposure. They have 270 billion worth of OpenAI, along with 45% of their RPO being purely OpenAI. So any headline around OpenAI that's bad is bad for Microsoft. Obviously, the software headlines have been bad. If this whole idea of selling seats in software on a subscription basis starts to die out because of AI, that could hurt Microsoft. Granted, I think that's a relatively small part of Microsoft's business compared to the AI infrastructure stuff. But yeah, I think it's unnecessarily being treated like an Adobe or Salesforce when it shouldn't be. And so I think Microsoft will be fine. But it's also a question of, is that the best risk reward in the Mag 7? I continue to believe Nvidia's the safest risk reward in Mag 7 right now. It's just not really getting that higher premium. Reddit's up 4, Mercado's up 2, Tesla's up 2, ASML's up 2, Applied Digital's up 2, IGV is up 1. I de-risked by selling Nebius before it went up 40%. Look, it is what it is. Sometimes you got to take profits. Now, look, I wouldn't have sold Nebius at 85. I mean, I took some profits at 105, not at 85. Like, whenever Nebius gets to that 80, 85 range, it's a buy. And historically, for the past 7 months, when it gets up to 105, 110, it's a sell. Now, this time it's not giving you the sell part because it's actually breaking out above that. And they actually have some deals to justify that. But 85 has been kind of the historical bottom on this one. CoreWeave 70 usually tends to be the buy, but this time it went below 70 for a little bit. So this one just got kicked hard after earnings. I know Jose loves this one. 82, I feel like, if you like it, you like it here. But it was at 115 early February. I mean, this one also took a nasty haircut. Circle up another 8%. Circle going up this much is a little interesting. It's also a little weird that a stablecoin play is getting this much love by the market, which makes me think the Clarity Act and the Genius Act are going to get approved if the market's trying to express potentially their bullishness through Circle. But I don't know if that one deserves to be up 100% in a month. Mamba says, Amid, I cut the hood, 2028 leap break even, and I'm thinking to just run covered call strategy with shares. Can I get your thoughts? Yeah, I don't like options on anything right now. We were talking about this a couple days ago. Steve, Tanner, Matt, and I were on stream. Like, options on anything right now is just a little scary because you really don't. Like, today's a green day. Everyone feels good, but let's not forget all the ugly red days that we've had to get to this green day, or the intra red that we've seen within the day that ruins all the green. And so options make sense when everything's trending and you can get your leaps and you have time on your side, but that theta decay is ugly if these stocks stay choppy. Definitely on something like Hood, which is so contingent on the market, I would not be buying leaps on this right now. I would not be buying leaps on Nvidia. I know a lot of people like leaps on Amazon, but dude, if we're talking about negative free cash flow for a year, I mean, what's the catalyst for Amazon to pump? Now, I can name you a bunch of catalysts. I know the Anthropic IPO is a big one, but if the street wants cash flow and Amazon's not giving it, I don't know if leaps make sense. Same thing with Microsoft, same thing with Meta, even though I think these candidates for leaps would be extremely attractive. But yeah, I think shares are a better option right now. Options are dead right now. All mine are negative. Yeah. I mean, it's not really exciting to get into leaps, and then you have just a ton of theta decay. But would you do covered calls on them? Yes, I would. I mean, look, Hood right now has been stuck between 70 and 80. So, like, why not? Right? Like, force Hood to break out. And, like, again, if Hood's breaking out, the whole market's breaking out, which means if you have to roll those calls, you shouldn't be upset to do it at that point because then you're getting a real breakout. But again, even if you get a real break, let's say Hood breaks out to 85. Can it actually sustain that and go to 90 and 95? Or is it going to come right back down? Same thing with Nvidia. Let's say we break out to 195. Can we actually sustain that? Or are we just, until we have a Liberation Day V-shaped type of moment, which we have not had all year, I continue to call BS on a lot of the green rallies. Not to say that it's bearish, but to say that it's not the ultra green move that will change the trajectory of the markets. Especially when we have a war going on. It's like, I just don't know how someone can be like, yep, buying calls, let's go to the moon. Now, if we get into that environment, I think everyone will be happy, and you can buy into the strength. And SoFi goes to 22 from 17, even if you miss the $17, so you probably buy 22 as it goes, probably going to go to 27 and get back to that historical mean. But we need S&P 7,000 for that, and we are far away from it. All my options are negative aside from OPTT as well. Do you think Circle is going up because a lot of people converted their crypto to USD as opposed to selling, so Circles make bank with cryptos? I think that is actually one of the better reasons that I've heard about USD supply going up, which is good for Circle. But I also think, the market's thinking if the treasuries that get bought up by these stablecoin companies actually has a meaningful impact on yields, then the government's definitely going to want to keep the stablecoin companies in favor. And could also just be getting some love from that perspective. The 10 years at 4.234, as that one is still stuck above 4.2. Benny said, I collected about 20,000 in premiums from Hood, $200 cover calls. I sold close to the top. Yeah, not bad. 200 was even more aggressive at the time, right? When it was at 150. Thoughts on Webull? I am not a fan of Webull. Didn't they have earnings? Didn't the earnings suck last week? It's up 1%, or this was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, dude, if Hood can't catch a bid, Webull's not catching a bid, unfortunately. So I don't think this one's... But then again, it's a $5 stock. It's like, what, a $3 billion company. If we flip into that bullish scenario that we're talking about, yeah, $2.79 billion, I think Webull could easily catch a bid. But, the whole market's gotta get there. It would be badass if Adobe and CRM went vertical from here. Yeah, and it would actually be nice to see them. But, again, for Adobe and Salesforce to go vertical, sentiment on software has to shift so dramatically that I don't know if we easily get that. We have some more stuff from... Let's take a listen to what he's saying. Or some updates on what he said already. 11 a.m., folks. We got Jensen speaking in a couple hours.
Almost all of Iranian oil exports. And over the weekend, the U.S. did targeted military strikes on the island, but not hitting the oil infrastructure. And we talked about that a little bit with Treasury Secretary Bessent, who made, I think, an interesting comment about the United States letting Iranian ships go through the strait. Listen.
We are seeing more and more the fuel ships start to go through. The Iranian ships have been getting out already, and we've let that happen to supply the rest of the world. We've seen Indian ships go out now. So the Indians, who rely very heavily on Gulf oil, we believe some Chinese ships have gone out. So that should start ramping up.
I think the language, guys, from all these interviews is incredibly important to parse through the specifics, saying letting. In other words, we could not let them in some other way. And that's critical for the oil markets because right now we are at a deficit. You heard the Treasury Secretary in the last hour ran the comments, 10 to 14 million barrels a day. Some people are lower than that. So he took the high estimate. But if we saw some hit on Iranian oil infrastructure, Carg Island's loading ability, or some of those Iranian ships or ships loaded with Iranian oil, could be a very different story for the oil markets, could be a very different story for the stock markets. But as you guys noted right at the very tippy top, for now, I guess the market is enjoying the fact that oil is not rallying like it did last night.
What is the significance of the attacks on Carg Island, Brian?
Depends on who you ask, Sarah, because there is and I want to be careful here, there is a school of thought. Could the U.S. do some kind of military intervention onto Carg? In other words, potentially boots on the ground, American soldiers, or maybe a coalition with the French, Emmanuel Macron, the president of this country where we are right now, making some supportive comments last night, also on X and other social media platforms. Could there be some kind of U.S. or global military intervention to take the island? If that would be the case, it would take the war up another notch. But some of the comments we saw, Sarah, from Iran, The ship going through today bound for Pakistan, these are small baby steps. But if this continues every day, the price of oil is likely to continue to go down. I know you guys talked about that with Fred Kemp in the previous hour.
Brian, appreciate it. Important comments, really moving the needle, at least on the discussion today. Brian Sullivan in Paris. For more on the impact of the war on both energy and your portfolio, let's bring in Citi Research Head of U.S. Equity Strategy, Scott Kroner.
All right, folks, that's what we got. Same updates on oil. Again, Besant made a lot of comments this morning. It's signaling that the Strait of Hormuz would be open. Oil is spiking right now to 94. It was at the lows of 92, so you got a little bit of a spike, but obviously last night was at 104, so it's nice to see that come down. And, hopefully that continues. Hopefully that continues. S&P is just below 670, 668. Again, Jensen speaks in about 3 hours, 2 p.m. So whatever he says will implicate, I think, the rest of the market for today and honestly for the rest of the week. I know we have FOMC as well, but I would be, if you're trading around this, then 2 p.m. Eastern is that time frame you want to look at for what he says, and that will ultimately dictate where the market goes from here. Okay, that is it for me. I will be back tomorrow morning. Let's see what we can do. Hopefully we can hold on to this green. Again, the theme of the entire year has been choppy. If we continue to be choppy, I don't think it would be surprising, but hopefully we can hold on to a little bit more momentum. Word of the day. Let's do that, then we'll keep going. I will not be streaming GTC Live. I'm sure Tanner will be. So you guys can head over to Tanner's channel. He'll probably be live streaming it, and we'll get to see everything that Jensen says. Word of the day is diffident. Shy or lacking confidence, hesitant to assert oneself. He sounded diffident on the call, even though the numbers were strong. I imagine Jensen will not be sounding diffident today, as he probably tells the world why Nvidia is going to keep winning. But that is the word of the day. Orbs right here up 42%. Again, this OpenAI headline, they're getting a bunch of money from BitMine. They're investing that money into OpenAI. So I guess Orbs is being seen as a proxy OpenAI play right now. But there you go. That's up 41%. Use it with Mark Benioff. Exactly. That's that's a good point. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. I will not be doing the market close today. I'll be at the event. If you follow on Twitter, I'll have a bunch of updates on what I'm seeing. But we'll be live tomorrow in the market open. We'll see what Jensen says, and hopefully this can continue this momentum and keep it going. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye, everyone.